Hello everyone, welcome back to another Friday and another casual champion review. The 100th casual champion review, in fact. Can you believe it? I can't believe I'm sitting next to a $200 skin right now. This is gonna be fun though, not just because it is the 100th casual champion review, but also because Orianna is in a bit of a weird spot lore-wise now. Because the version that we see in game and in her story kind of isn't real anymore. I can also kind of imagine the situation of an Arcane fan seeing Orianna in Arcane at the end of the episode, like, oh, Singed has a daughter? Wait, his daughter is a champion in League of Legends? What? Only to look up her story and find out that none of it's $200 skin, by the way. None of it's actually real anymore. You know what I always want to be real, though? Fan art section. Firstly, thank you, fellas, for sticking around for 100 of these damn things. The fan art section brings not just an immense smile to my face, but it's an immense motivator for me to make these videos. But also, too, the fact that so many of them for Ori are based on the silly little redesign that I did because a patron asked me to redesign Orianna based on what she looked like at the end of Arcane. Why? Why'd you guys do that? It's amazing. I didn't think you guys would even like it because you guys are amazing. I'll talk about it in the video, but thank you fellas so much. I love it. So I am going to be talking about Orianna's lore as it currently exists on the wiki, not just because, well, that's most of the lore that we have to go off with her, but also because I think it does add a nice comparison to how she changed from Arcane, but also because her base biography is just really good. So Orianna Revek was born in Piltover, daughter and apprentice to artificer Corin Revek. He ran a little shop in Piltover, well known for his development of very elegant artificial prosthetics. They had a very loving father-daughter relationship, and as she grew up, not only started to work with him in his shop, but became an artificer herself. Corin, though, was incredibly overprotective, refusing to let Orianna go beyond the borders of their neighborhood, instead taking her to the theater to watch shows and plays of distant lands. Riven players, I swear to God, man. Ori loved these shows. She dreamed... okay, well, I didn't kill her, but at least I didn't die. I thought I was really... So Ori dreamed of one day visiting all the marvelous places from her shows, and to express her desire to do so, her creativity, she built little clockwork dolls and figurines, replicating the scenarios and the people she saw. But one day there was a chemical disaster in Zaun, when is there not, an outbreak of toxic fumes, and Ori insisted that they could go help these people, but Corin was like, no, 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 too dangerous, and forbade her from going. But that didn't stop Orianna, so in the middle of the night, night after night, in fact, she would go down to Zaun to help these people, rebuilding their ventilation systems, installing respirators, and even giving away her own filtration mask to a child who needed it. Corin was initially furious when he found out about Orianna doing this, but that swiftly turned to fear when he found out that all the toxic fumes in Zaun had affected her, giving her a horrible illness that was slowly deteriorating her lungs. But Corin, as the overprotective father, couldn't stand to see his daughter potentially die, and so worked tirelessly to create a new batch of artificial lungs. Leave me alone! Oh, wait. I'm a genius! And he was actually successful, giving Ori new artificial lungs, powering them by a little wind-up key. Corin actually held on to this wind-up key, kept it secret, ensuring essentially that Orianna could never venture too far from him again, else she couldn't even use her new lungs. Surprisingly, she wasn't too against this, and they lived happily for a good amount of time until the illness started to spread. This time, though, it was a joint venture. Ori and Corin worked together to slowly repair the pieces of her that failed, but as each part of her deteriorated slowly but surely, she became more and more mechanical until eventually the only human part left of her was her heart. This process didn't just take a long time, but was also incredibly expensive. It cost Corin his entire fortune and ironically forced them to move to Zaun. Again, this didn't seem to bother them too much, especially for Corin. As long as Ori was safe, then he was content. However, another ironic twist of fate happened in that as Orianna was essentially an automaton now, she didn't really age, but Corin still did, and he suffered a horrible heart condition. Oh, I'm not happy. Oh, wait. Oh. That was close. Simultaneously, Ori slowly started to lose her sense of self, her memories, her creativity, her personality. It slowly started to become more mechanical, just like her body. But because of her father's failing heart, she had to pick up the slack and provide for the family. So she was able to dive a bit back into that creative side of her and use the crafted figurines she had made to sell for income. But it wasn't enough income to get what she thought would truly be able to save her father's heart, which was a Hextech crystal, yet another reason why this story can no longer be canon. But in order to get this Hextech crystal, she didn't have the money, so she made a deal with a chem baron. But then eventually, while working on this new machine to help repair her father's heart, realized that she wouldn't be able to pay the chem baron in time. And so in a last-ditch effort, she packed up her things, got the Hextech crystal, made a little orb to help conceal it. That's why she has the orb right now. And decided the only logical solution to save her father was because, well, she wasn't human anymore. She no longer needed her own heart, but she could save Corrin by giving him hers. Not again! I swear to God, Rango. Wait again. What? I'm a genius. So Orianna performed the surgery, gave Corrin her heart, packed up the Hextech crystal with her new orb friend, and grabbed the wind-up key, melding it to her back, ensuring she no longer needed Corrin. She'd given away her heart, the last of her humanity, but that last piece of her would always be with Corrin. That left the prospect of who even is she anymore? What is she now? She's not human. She's not really Orianna Revek anymore. Something ship of Theseus. And she walked out into the world, trying to figure out who and what she is. I think Orianna's story isn't as much about how much she's lost her humanity, because she still is technically free thinking. She still made her own decisions. She can still laugh, feel happiness, feel sadness, disappointment, betrayal. She's a bit foggy on how to do all those things, but she still can. She hasn't really lost her humanity. That was emphasized a lot in her short story with Firem, I think is how it's pronounced. I mean, that was a great story. It was heartbreaking. She encounters what she thinks is an automaton like herself. That this Firem is someone who actually understands what it's like to be in this situation, to be this half-human, half-robot hybrid thing. But in trying to free him to find this, what she almost thinks is a soulmate, someone she was destined to help free and learn together to be human again with, finds out he's just a robot, just a carnival attraction, not alive or free thinking at all. And this absolutely destroys her mentally. But that could only really happen if she still had a piece of her humanity left, which I'd argue in this instance is basically her soul. And it reminds me that if they want to do something with Orianna in the future, at least even post-Arcane, but pre-Arcane especially, they should have had a whole thing with Orianna and Blitzcrank meeting up to become friends. It'd be so good, you know? Like, we have the human becoming more robotic and the robot becoming more human. It's such a perfect match, yet equal contrast. I think they would go so great together. I'm sad we might not ever see it, mostly because, you know, Orianna's in a bit of a weird spot right now, but Blitzcrank's just flat out not canon anymore. Orianna has been sort of entirely retconned. Like I said earlier, Corrin Revek is now singed in the new timeline. We don't know how or when Orianna dies in this new version, but we know a lot like the original Corrin that Singed will never let Orianna go. But in this case, instead of trying to repair her, Singed is seeing that Orianna died and is trying to bring her back to life. He's trying to cure death, committing all sorts of horrible atrocities to try and do this. By the end of Arcane, it's revealed he took a sample of Victor's blood infused with Oh, all right, where was I? So yeah, at the end of Arcane Season 2, Singed took Warwick's blood infused with Victor's arcane magic, used a big potion science something to bring Orianna back to life in a new Hextech body. The brand new design we always saw small glimpses of. Presumably she's much younger in this version because she's kind of more of a child than a grown woman, and that's about it. But as for League of Legends, we're left with this. Design-wise, Orianna's aged significantly less poorly than other champions, primarily because she is robotic. At least from a distance, that whole stiff and clunky movement, it fits a bit more naturally because she's not supposed to be natural. She's robotic. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't look as endearing as I think she probably should because, well, originally she wasn't supposed to be endearing. In the really old original lore, she was supposed to be a replacement for Corrin's original daughter. So full-on robot trying to learn to be Orianna and live up to the original Orianna's dreams of becoming a champion in the League of Legends, because that's how the old lore worked. She didn't really know how to and was a little violent, so that's why all her voice lines sound a bit iffy, like she's trying to murder people. Doesn't really fit well with the modern incarnation of her story. Model-wise, it's been passable. There's certainly other champions that look significantly worse than she does, especially the actual full human characters like LeBlanc, who's thankfully getting a visual update, or Zillion, who really needs one. Also mainly because Orianna's design hasn't really kept up with the pace of League of Legends aesthetic-wise. It was kind of a vibe or pre-ASU Kaelin situation where she was designed before Piltover actually had an established thematic. So as such, besides having gold on her, it doesn't really fit in with the world of Piltover all that well. It's hard to have a proper critique with Orianna because, again, her original purpose was to be this more weird murder robot lady. Well, Piltover had no established thematic, so they made the design to be based on that and not the tragic figure, the Piltovan daughter artificer who got turned into a robot piece by piece. So So I will judge it on that because they decided to retcon her into that character without changing how she looks. The weirdest thing to me is I always thought Orianna looked ugly. Not in the sense that like her face is ugly or her figure's ugly or any of that stuff. I just mean as a robot, as an automaton, I think Wild Rift did a better job of it, primarily just because of the higher fidelity model and better quality textures. I just always felt that in League of Legends, Orianna was very unrefined. You see, like, doesn't she just look dirty? Looks kind of grungy and scrappy and unrefined, which would make sense if Corrin had to build her new parts with a box of scraps, but that's kind of the opposite. Corrin's whole business was that he was well known for making the most elegant and beautiful looking artificial prosthetics out there. And also Orianna was a very creative young girl that she also had a hand in designing these robotic parts. So it seems super weird to me that this super creative girl, all this funding that Corrin literally drained dry to make these prosthetics, ended up with a body that looks so lazy is the bad term. It's like almost her entire body is just plain silver with a couple swirly patterns on it. The Wild Rift version shows that off a bit better than the League one. And I get that might play into her whole story of not really feeling like herself again, not knowing who she is, but I'd argue it'd actually make even more sense if her robotic body was incredibly colorful and outlandish. I think that would actually add to the whole body dysmorphia thing. She's not only trapped in a body unfamiliar to her, she doesn't really know who she is anymore, but now she's also trapped in a body that embodies everything about who she once was, essentially trapped in a body designed to be the physical manifestation of her old self, which she doesn't really align with anymore. Maybe it's a bit of an important distinction that in her story she's trying to find her humanity again, not really find who she once was. So maybe that old version, that young naive girl who liked the shows and dancers and ballet, maybe that's just not who Orianna is anymore. So trapping her in that kind of body would only add to the whole body dysmorphia theme. That's all kind of gone out the window a little bit with the new version. The new version that we see at the end of Arcane, we only get a few glimpses of. I think we only see her back, a bit of her face, and a bit of her arm. We don't know exactly what she looks like in full, but I actually did make my own rendition of what I think she could look like. One of my patrons with the World Tree tier, where they get to have a drawing done from them each month, asked me to draw what I thought the full version of Orianna would look like, and so I gave my go at it. I don't think it's my best work. Moda. Oh! Airy kill. If I had more time, I probably would go back and refine it a bit, but I think the context is important here. Because this new version of Ori and going after more the design of Victor's puppets, I think is actually incredibly clever. Because moving Orianna away from this more obviously mechanical design to look more like Victor's evolved followers, the ones that are essentially marionettes, which makes sense because Victor controls them like puppets on strings, Ori has always had those puppet-like elements to her. There were some things she didn't have agency over. She had a very overprotective father. She was constantly losing every single piece of her, to the point now she doesn't even really know who she is, but in that essence, making her look like a puppet completely recontextualizes it. Because don't forget, in this current version of the lore, even though her lungs wasn't really her idea, every other part, she was a willing participant. She even helped design some of it. She eventually lost most of who she was and is trying to get some form of humanity back. So she's a puppet in a sense that she doesn't really know who or what guides her anymore. But in Arcane, she is a literal puppet in the sense that she's fully controlled. She had no agency in this transformation at all. She was dead and brought back to life by her father because her father refused to let her go. We don't know how stable her mind is in this version, considering how much younger she is. We don't know if her brain has developed enough that she can even comprehend what's happened to her, or if she even is the same person anymore. Corrin was overprotective, but Singed is flat out possessive. Like, he owns Orianna in this timeline. So it does kind of take this idea of Ori doesn't really know who or what she is anymore in a completely, honestly, much darker route where this child is essentially being held hostage by her own parent who refuses to let them go, forcing them to undergo this transformation, bring them back from the dead into this weird hybrid zombie metal hex tech arcane thing. What's she gonna do? Can she interact with society anymore? Surely not. Everyone's terrified of magic again. Is she just gonna be trapped in the basement with Singed forever? It sounds awful. It's horrible. It's dark. I kind of like it. You gotta have at least one sad kid. And also, Raya's just been on this streak lately. I just don't like playing as characters who are victims. Skarner, and I've heard rumors that Rel might be retcon. It's just like, no, these characters are empowered by their trauma. We like playing as these characters because they're overcoming the hardships they've had. I want to see where the story goes with this version of Orianna because we've only seen so little of it. I think we only saw like 10 seconds of her. And I don't know if Riot is ever actually going to continue it. That's actually been my biggest worry about the Arcane retcon. I've been very iffy on it for a while style now, sort of 50-50, because a lot of Riot's lore only exists today because of retcons, because they try and innovate and recontextualize their characters to fit into the world better. The problem is that Riot Games is incredibly slow at doing that, and then when they announced they're gonna make a retcon using Arcane, I'm like, hey man, so, you know, like Twitch, Cho'Gath, Corki, Shaco, Kog'Maw, you weren't done doing your first retcon yet. Now you're going to retcon the characters that already have great lore, like Orianna. And that's why I'm kind of split on Orianna as well, because I do think the new potential storyline could be really good, with Singed being her father. It also gives Singed a lot more depth in that way. But her old story was already so good that if Riot decides to never act on it, never give Orianna some kind of visual update or voice line update or new story, new biography, anything, then we're permanently left with an idea of what could have been, as opposed to the already existing story that is really great. I think in a perfect world, Orianna would have just gotten a visual update to make her better match to the modern aesthetics of Piltover and give her a fresh coat of paint, a new model, so that she looks at least somewhat appealing to look at in game. Can you imagine if they made the Star Guardian Orianna have the default Orianna animations, like, which also plays into, I feel like I've talked about her lore nauseum this whole game, but I think Orianna's gameplay is just, it's amazing. I think it's absolutely incredible how well her kit has aged. She was one of the first higher skill characters, one of the first characters to see the big wow in professional play, you know, the big team-wide ult with the faker back when, you know, team-wide game-changing abilities were on champions' ultimates and not basic abilities. Now, she's fun, incredibly rewarding to play, plays like no other mage in the game, in a good way. Oh my god. Jhin score. There's a lot of champions who have these really weird, wacky, unique mechanics, but I think the ball thing with Orianna not only is really well implemented, it's really fun to master, whether you decide to use it on yourself, to have it stationary in place, or use it on your allies. Like Orianna was once in the past, it feels like I could use it very creatively. I feel like I should be doing more damage. No! Caitlyn Kidderman, my hubris! I swear I heard a cling sound, dude. Is that... Heartsteel Sona, okay. And I think Orianna has been relatively well balanced throughout the entirety of her existence. I think the only times that Orianna has actually become very oppressive is not even any fault of her own. It's like Twisted Fate. We had that whole thing where Twisted Fate was suddenly really good, despite his kit being incredibly well designed and well balanced. Just the items were overtuned. Suddenly those items got nerfed and they're back to being perfectly fine again. I don't think Orianna was ever the most popular champion, but she has held a pretty significant place in the hearts of most League players, I think. Certainly for me. For me, at least back when the old mastery system was still in place, I really enjoyed learning new characters, getting Mastery 5, and trying to pick a new one. I didn't really know what. I probably would have liked to learn Orianna more, but I just hated how she looked. And then the bee skin happened, and well, I got the Mastery 5 on Orianna. This is all to say, I do think her kit is very well designed, very fun, very rewarding, and very well balanced. So if they were ever to give her an update, I would hope it is just a visual update. Or at least at this point now, if Arcane must be canon, then Riot needs to do the work to expand her story. Hubris! Your hubris this time! I will be sad to lose the current Orianna that we have, because she does have a really great character arc and a really heartbreaking short story. Seriously, guys, give her short story a read over when you have the chance. It's heartbreaking. And I'm the ace guy, alright? Like, I don't even give a rat's ass about relationships. It was very sad to read. I think I've gotten through everything I want to say about Orianna. I think I talked a lot about her lore, but because she kind of has two versions of it now, doesn't she? So, thank you, fellas, for watching this casual champion review, the 100th casual champion review. If you've watched all 100 of them somehow, thank you, fellas, so much for sticking with me. I'm sorry that this content has been kind of overtaking the channel recently. I would rather have this as just the side thing while I work on the big projects, which still is the case, but my university thesis has kind of eaten up all my time recently, but I do have a lot of big videos planned still. So again, thank you fellas for sticking around watching this casual champion review. Next week will be Ornn, another character that I really like and can't wait to play and talk about. So until then, thank you fellas, stay for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one, alright? Goodbye.